Ladies, we're ready.
Good morning.
Congratulations, when are you due? Good day. Well, hello. Hope you're having a great day today. This is another episode of Good Day. My name is Daniel Bennett. It's great to have you join us. And if you haven't checked out our free giveaway yet for this month or for this season of shows, you can go to gooddayGTN.com. It's how to become a water walker by Andrew Wommack. You can get the digital one for free immediately, or there's a code that you can punch in to get the physical copy for free as well. So today we're going to be talking about long-term relationships. And so I'll get to that in a minute. I want to start off by doing a quick little look at friendship. And so what I'm doing currently is a quick little topical study. This isn't a teaching. This is more just reacting to quotes and scriptures on a subject. And so the subject for today is friendship. And so we're going to look at 3 different quotes on friendship and then 3 different scriptures on friendship. And the scriptures will be good, but the quotes may be good or weird or bad, or we'll find out together. So the first one by Elbert Hubbard: a friend is someone who knows all about you and still loves you. I'd say that's a side of friendship, right? What if somebody knows all about you, still loves you, and you don't enjoy hanging out together? But no, I like that one. Again, it's I'll get to this more in a little bit, but when you get to know someone really well and you still choose to spend time with them, and they get to know you really well and they still choose to spend time with you, that is one of the keys to a more meaningful friendship. The next quote here: true friends stab you in the front, which is, I guess, a play on, stabbing somebody in the back. But honestly, I don't know if this person meant it as a good thing or a negative thing, if they're being funny or not. But in a sense, it's basically, right, if you're a friend, you're loyal, right? So you give people, you tell people what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear. And so now stabbing in the back usually means betrayal. So I don't think it means just betrayal to their face. I think it means, loving them enough to not just be a yes man or a yes woman, right? To actually tell them what would benefit them, what they need to know. The last quote here: the only way to have friends is to be one, by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And that's very similar to a scripture that might be here. Yeah, I'll have the scripture here in a second. But again, some people wonder, why don't I have friends? Why don't I have friends? But then they're not friendly. It's kind of like if you're wondering, why won't people ask me to hang out? Well, have you asked somebody else to hang out? It's kind of sow what you want to reap. You reap what you sow. And so if you want people to be friendly toward you, you can start off by being friendly toward other people. If you always just stay locked up in your house and never go anywhere, then how's anyone ever going to befriend you? And so it's about going out and meeting people and maybe taking that first step and, taking a chance, right? Sometimes when you step out and say, I want to just kind of see if this person if we click, right? And so I think I mentioned this in the past in a previous episode, but friendship is kind of like a smaller scale version of romance and marriage and stuff, where the stakes are much lower. You're not going for a lifelong commitment. You're not going for romance, but there's still this little finding out if you're both interested in this relationship or not. And so getting to know, do you click? Do you not click? And moving on to the 3 scriptures on friendship. So it looks like most of these might be from Solomon. Proverbs 27:17. Can you imagine being friends with Solomon? Being like, my friend knows everything. Okay, so Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. It's a bigger topic, but I used to be a spiritual loner. I wouldn't be open with anybody about anything, and I'd just kind of be surface level friends with a lot of people. And then I realized I was missing out. God told me, no, just, if you get closer with people, they might disappoint you. But if you don't, then you won't have any relationship at all. It's worth it, because once I realized how fun it is to have true, godly, meaningful relationships, like deep, good friendships, I was like, man, I'm growing faster with others than I ever grew on my own, because again, iron sharpens iron. So, their ideas spark ideas in me. What they're going through sparks thoughts in me. What I'm going through sparks thoughts in them, and the whole thing. So, there's lots of value in relationship. I think, again, I've talked about this in the past, but I think that friendship is very undervalued. I think it's much more valuable than most people realize, and we should invest in it more and prioritize it more and not let it just fall by the wayside as easily as we often let it happen. So next scripture here, Ecclesiastes 4 verses 9 and 10. It says, 2 are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. I mean, what's disappointing, right, is if you have a crisis and they ditch you, you know, and a lot of people are scared of this, right? That's why I think that good, deep friendships are worth finding and worth investing in. Because some people are so scared, like, oh, I don't want to tell my friends if I'm going through something difficult because I don't want to bother them, right? Maybe I'll sound annoying, or I'll ruin their day if they have to help me out. And so I'm just not going to tell them because I don't want to impose on them. But a true friend wants to look out for you, right? And if you're true friends with somebody else, you want to look out for them, where you're like, oh yeah, I didn't want to move this weekend, but I'll help you move this weekend. Or once I had a surgery thing many years ago when I was in the military, and so I was stuck in my room, and one of my friends would bring me food and stuff, and you know, I didn't expect that. I was like, I guess I just have these snacks in my room, but this guy, just without me even asking, just showed up and brought me soup. And so it's so much fun to have people to look out for and to know that they want to look out for you. And so Proverbs 18 verse 24 says, a man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Right, so again, two sides to that, right, is like I was saying before with the quote earlier, is be friendly. And you can apply this to everything. It's not just being friendly with your peers, with that kind of friend, but this can be true at work. This is true in your marriage. This is true in your walk with God. If you want to be friends, be friendly. You know, think about, what does it mean to be friendly? What's it mean to be friends? And treat people that way, you know. And so there's different versions of this, right? Say like with your children, you don't necessarily want to be friends like peers, but you still want to be friends within the context of the relationship. But then this last part here, there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Right? If somebody's close with you, there can be this bond where you have this loyalty and camaraderie where it can go beyond, right? David and Jonathan, right? They weren't physically brothers, but they looked out for each other. Where Jonathan, I mean, I love Jonathan in the Bible. I mean, he's one of the most humble people in the entire Bible, in my opinion, because here he sees David. In the natural, Jonathan is the next one who's supposed to become the king, but he recognizes that David is the one who's called, and so he supports his friend, even though that means losing his own mantle, his own calling in the natural. He recognized, no, God's calling me to support David. He's my friend. I care about him. I want what's best for him. And so he would save David's life. They were good friends. Because Jonathan was a hero of the faith, right? I mean, there's miraculous things that God used him to do. And so, anyway, okay, so in a second, we're going to talk about long-term relationships here, a wide variety of long-term relationships. But first, we have a quick little promo for you for this booklet. We'll see you in a minute.
You know, life comes with all kinds of storms. But when your boat is sinking, you might want to step out and learn how to be a water walker. Log on to GoodDayGTN.com to get your free copy today.
All right, so the main topic for today is long-term relationships. And that might sound unusual. I'm not talking about a long-term dating relationship. It can include that. But I'm talking about relationships that we have for years and decades. And so just long-term relationships, it can be a wide variety. Marriage, friendships, maybe a relationship with a mentor, or if you're the mentor, with a mentee, if that's a word. Work relationships, ministry relationships, all kinds of stuff, right? Basically, people that are in your life in some way for a long period of time. It can be with family, of course, right? And there's many different flavors of directions this goes, right? Relationship with your kids, relationship with your siblings, if you have siblings, with your parents, with extended family, all these different directions that it can go. You know, they say that 50% of marriages end in divorce or something around that number. But I think that it's not just marriage. I think that it's probably even more for other types of relationships, where most long-term relationships end before they become very long-term relationships. You know, I think that it's very common to just give up on relationships. It's often much easier just to give up. And so I kind of want to talk about the benefits of having long-term relationships and how to maintain them, even though there is a balance to this. Sometimes it is time to move on. It's time to have boundaries. It's time to let some things go. But I think sometimes we give up on relationships too quickly. And I think that these are something worth investing in. You know, I think that maintaining a long-term relationship is an art. And in many cases, it's a lost art, where it's just, again, if people don't know how to stay in relationship for a long period of time, then they just move on. And the problem with this, right, if we aren't good at long-term relationships, you know, I'm talking decades, or at least years, then we're kind of setting ourselves up to be surrounded by three types of people, right? The first type is people we barely know, right? If the minute you get to know somebody, you give up on them, then you'll only have people in your life that you barely know, or people that you haven't known for very long, right? You're like, okay, I haven't known them very long, so they haven't had a chance to disappoint me yet. We haven't had a chance to have any conflict yet. You know, they haven't let me down. I haven't seen a side of them that I'm not crazy about yet. And so you'll be surrounded by people you barely know, people you haven't known very long, or by people who annoy you, but you're stuck for some reason, right? So you're like, yeah, I've known this person for years, but they drive me crazy and I don't care about them that much. I mean, if we don't know how to truly enjoy and embrace long-term relationships and invest in them and see them as something that's a priority, then we're limiting ourselves, right? We'll push people out of our lives the minute they let us down, the minute they're not perfect. And you see this in all kinds of stuff. You know, you see this in people who are church hoppers, right? They go to a new church and they're like, this is the best church ever. Every other church I've been to is the worst. And then after a few months, they're like, oh, this church isn't good either. And then they go to the next one. This is the best one ever. And then they give up on that one. And they move to the next one. I mean, you can see it with all kinds of stuff. You meet people who are conference junkies, right? They find out the new hot minister and they go there and they're the best one in the world. And then they're like, they're not that great anymore. And then they move on and move on and move on. So again, this can be friendships. It can be all kinds of relationships. It can be work. I'll get to this more here in a little bit. But it's very easy to see this in other people. You know, that's one of the keys in life, is when we learn to recognize in ourselves the things that we can see in others, we can go much farther. Because if someone else has a blind spot, then we might have that same blind spot. You know, if other people don't realize when they're doing something, then we should step back and say, do I do this? And maybe I don't realize it when it's me. Because once your own emotions are involved, we don't see as clearly. So again, giving up too quickly. Now, again, I'll give this disclaimer multiple times probably. There are boundaries. There is a time to cut people out of life and all that. But I would hope that that's the minority of cases. And I'm not going to focus too much on the boundary side and things like that. I'm going to focus more on just normal life, right? Where people butt heads, they disagree, things come up. But it's you know, we don't have to give up on things right away. But it's easy to see that it's a problem to give up too quickly with some of the obvious things, right? If you have a friend and they're always dating someone new, right? They date someone for a month and then they break up, and date someone for a month and break up, and date someone for 2 weeks and break up, and each time, this is the one, right? And if you see this over and over and over and over, you're like, you're going about this the wrong way. Like, you're not actually trying to build a long-term relationship here. You know, you're addicted to just that initial stage. So it's very easy to see this, like when someone else is dating frequently, just jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship. You know, or if someone did this with a job, right? If someone can't keep a job, if they get a new job and after 1 or 2 months or 6 months, they're like, I'm out of here. And they move on and they move on and they move on and they move on. Then you'll be like, okay, maybe it's you. Maybe it's not just them. And, you know, what happens is when people are doing this, they never say, I'm flaky. Maybe they do. But usually they say, oh, I just feel God's calling me somewhere else, or oh, I just changed my mind, or things like that. So to the other person watching them, they're like, it's clear that you're going about this the wrong way. But to them, they're like, oh man, I just have such bad luck. You know, I know this because I used to be like this. You know, with kind of trying to step into my calling, I used to try something and then I'd get bored and give up. And I'd change my mind. It didn't feel like I was getting bored and giving up. In hindsight, I realized I was getting bored because it wasn't what I thought it would be. But basically, I would start something new and say, this is what I'm going to do. And after about 2.5 to 3 months, I'd be like, you know what? This isn't what I want to do with my life. I want to do something else. And so then I'd quit and I'd go do something else. And I'd do that for about 2.5 to 3 months. And I'd be like, yeah, this isn't fulfilling the way I thought it would be. This isn't it. You know, I'm still looking for my calling. I'm still looking for what I want to pour my life into something, and I haven't found it yet. And I just kept changing from thing to thing to thing. And again, it felt very spiritual, right? Where I was like, I had a talk with God and I feel like it's time to move on. You know, and not realizing like, no, I'm sabotaging this. I'm not looking for the right things. I don't know how to invest long-term into a commitment or a relationship. You know, again, for me, this was more like career type stuff. But what finally broke me free from this was actually something that my dad told me. I know, believe it or not, my dad has some good things to say every now and then. I'm joking. He has many good things to say. But I was on the phone, so I just started something new, and it was going to be very intense training for about 3 years. And about 2, 3, 4 months into it, I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I was like, you know, I changed my mind. This isn't what I want to do. And my dad said, finish what you started. You know, he said, it doesn't matter if you don't want to do this the rest of your life, but prove to yourself that you can finish what you started. And I was like, but I don't want to, but I will. And so I pushed through, and that changed my life, because the moment I did something, and I went through, and and there's many stages of this intense training. And so after 2 years, I completed one part, and then I had like 6 more months of another thing, and then another year of another thing and all this stuff. And when I finished it, I was like, my goodness, I actually did it. Something that I wanted to do, I did it. Now I lost interest about 3 months in, but I still did it. But what happened is, and it wasn't what I wanted to do the rest of my life, but the fact that I stuck with it and I finished what I started and I completed a commitment, it changed how I saw myself. I suddenly saw myself as, I'm someone who can finish what he starts. I'm not just all talk. Because I'd started subconsciously believing that I'll never complete something. Like maybe I am just flaky, maybe, what's wrong? And by finishing what I started, it proved to me I can do this. And it taught me like, oh, this is what it takes. Like you have to kind of grind it out. You have to push through the exciting honeymoon stage of starting something new, a new job, new training, new goal, whatever else. There's this exciting stage where it's all new, it's all fresh. And then it's like, oh, now it's just hard work. And another day of hard work, and another day of hard work, and another day of hard work, right? And a few months later, I had to learn how to dig deeper in a way I didn't know how to before. And by learning how to do that, I was like, oh, now I know how to do this for other things. I know how to dig deep. I know how to grind it out. I know how to stick with something once, it's kind of like Olympians, right? You see some of these videos of, during the Olympics, they'll show videos of people and their training and stuff. And they're like, most of the training happened alone in a gymnasium or alone in the gym or whatever else, in the swimming pool, when no one's watching, no one cared. And I had to wake up when there's no fanfare, no anything. And I just showed up and stuck to my training when no one cared. Because people see the exciting part, right? The contest, the competition, the prizes and awards and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, that's a fraction. Most of it happened behind the scenes. Same is true with any calling you're serious about, whether it's, investing in your marriage, or if you're called to the ministry or your career, right? It's not just the exciting moments, right? It's kind of like when people watch lawyer movies or lawyer TV shows. I used to see like Matlock or something, right? And I'd watch this and I'd be like, oh, it'd be so much fun to be a lawyer and just be making these arguments in front of a judge and trying to convince a jury and all this kind of looking at the evidence. But I'm sure I'm not a lawyer. But most of what lawyers do is like boring research and just hard work, just looking at documents and papers. Nowadays, they probably go to ChatGPT. I hear that they come up with fake laws. You got to be careful with that. But you're right, the exciting parts, those are fun. But then there's all this work that goes in behind the scenes, right? Even pastoring. People might be like, oh, pastoring sounds so easy. It's just 1 hour a week of of ministering to people, and then I just get to hang out all week. That's not what pastoring is all about, right? There's all this stuff beneath the surface. And so by pushing through with one thing in my career, in my job, I guess, I learned how to do that. And so then I was like, now I know how to do that in other areas of my life. And that's helped me tremendously, because then I learned how to stick with something. And it changed how I saw myself, because when I committed to something, I was like, if I commit to this, I will do it. And I had conviction. I truly believed it. And so I became more careful with what I committed to, because I saw it, I'm not just going to start this, we'll see how it works out. Maybe I'll give up, maybe I'll quit. So no, if I do this, I'm going to do this. I'm not saying there's never exceptions, right? So again, it changes how we think. So again, the same is true with relationships, is that a long-term relationship requires a different way of thinking. We can't just say, I'm just good, it was really fun to get to know this new person, find out new things about them. They laughed at all my jokes that they hadn't heard before. I got to tell them stories. I got to hear stories I'd never heard before. I'm getting to know this new unique personality. And that's easy. But then when it's, they actually need my help with something, or, they did something that, they were tired one day and they weren't in the best mood one day, so their personality was inconsistent, or, they weren't as friendly to me as I thought they should be. And then it's like, am I going to just give up, or am I going to push through and say, no, they're a person. Some days they're going to be tired. Some days they might be stressed. Some days they might, they might say one thing and then not live up to it. I mean, have you ever had a goal and you don't live up to it, right? We all have that happen. For some reason, when it's us, we're very gracious. We're like, I didn't live up to my goal, but at least I wanted the right thing. When it happens to other people, it takes more effort to be gracious toward them when they don't live up to what they say they want to do and what they want to be. And so again, if you know someone long enough, the newness will wear off. You'll discover things about them that you might not be crazy about. You'll discover that they aren't perfect, right? Everybody. And that's one of the reasons why many teenagers rebel, is because you reach an age, right? I mean, when you're very young, you think your parents are perfect and they know everything. And then you get older and you realize they're not perfect. And so you have a temptation there. Do I rebel? Or do I say they're not perfect, but I should still learn from them? They still know things that I don't know. They might do things in a way that you don't like. They might be inconsistent. You might see them under pressure and you don't like how they handled it. It's like that. And then the question is, do I push through and have a long-term relationship or not? Except for Jesus, we're all growing. So some people say never meet your heroes or never put people on pedestals. But I think that's a cynical way to live life. I'd rather have heroes and meet them. I'd rather have people that I admire, but be gracious toward them, and not admire them because I pretend that they're perfect. I admire them because I know that they're people who are valuable, who they're not perfect, but there's still things about them that are admirable that I really like. The Bible doesn't say the righteous will never fall. It says, Proverbs 24:16, a righteous man may fall 7 times and rise again. All right, so it's not that righteous people never mess up, it's that they can get back up. So, and my first point really, and I'll continue this tomorrow, is that the only relationships that never have bumps are ones that are shallow or have been very short. If you know someone long enough, deep enough, there will be disagreements. There will be areas that aren't just everything is butterflies and roses and the whole deal. That's why so many people have a hard time getting along with their family, is because they're the people who've known you the longest many times. And so you've had the most opportunities to get offended at them. You've had the most opportunities to get frustrated with each other, things like that. And so, it can just pile up and pile up and pile up. And that's why, I watch movies. I love my family. But you see movies where people are like, I can't stand my relatives. I can't stand the holidays because I don't want to see everybody. And so that's just because things kept piling up and piling up, and no one actually dove in and said, like, no, I'm going to invest in this. I have some tips here for how to do this, but I'm going to get to these tomorrow. But I'll wrap up this segment with this, saying, there are seasons, again, my disclaimer, there are seasons in life, and just because you're in a relationship at work, in ministry, in family, friends, whatever else, you don't have to stay in the relationship forever. There are seasons, there are boundaries, there are times when you do need to move on. But I think those are the exception. And I think by default, we should really value relationships and try to pour ourselves into them. So we'll finish this up tomorrow. I have some tips on how to invest in them and make the most of them even more. But now I want to switch over and talk about, or just do some Q&A. I'm going to try and do some Q&A at the end of different episodes. And so these are just kind of random questions about life and whatever else, how to have a good day, I guess. So the first one is, how do I know when someone is truly trustworthy? And this does kind of tie into what I've been talking about, because relationships are built on trust. But I mean, in a sense, you can't just guess right off the bat. There's a few ways that you can kind of cheat and jump ahead, is if there's somebody that you know and trust really well, and they have a high opinion of this person, then you can kind of borrow some of that trust and say, well, if you trust them, then I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But really, trustworthiness, it takes time to build that. You live life, say in a work environment. You don't necessarily say, I'm going to trust you with my whole company. If you own a company, you don't just hand the keys over to somebody else and say, I hope they don't let me down. You build up to it, right? With smaller things. Were you trustworthy with a little? Okay, I'll give you more. Were you trustworthy with that? I'll give you more. Same in relationships, right? Sometimes people are like, I want to be open and I want to have a deep relationship. So this brand new person I just met, I'm going to tell them my deepest, most personal secrets right off the bat. All right, maybe you shouldn't do that, right? Maybe you get to know people a little bit, then as time goes on, you open up more and more. And so I'd say you build it little by little as trust is earned. But if trust is broken and if it's messed up, then you don't necessarily have to give up. Maybe you just, is this worth rebuilding? Is it not? So next question, what are the most important qualities I should look for in a friendship? I mean, there's many different types of friends. I've chatted about this before, but I'd say one of the main ones is iron sharpening iron. Are they going the direction that you want to go in life? But it doesn't have to be everything, right? You can have friends where you have a hobby in common. You can have friends that you have different things in common. You really enjoy spending time like this or like that, or, you can have work friends. You can have, right now there's so many people I'd love to be good friends with, and I'm just too busy. As you get older, it takes much more effort. Because you have, if you have family, kids, work, stuff like that, you just don't have infinite hours to spend time with people. And so in a sense, you need to get pickier as you have less free time, because you're like, I want to invest in the friendships that mean the most to me. So yeah, I'd say for me to be truly close with somebody, like I have a lot of friends, and then I have good friends, there's different levels of friendship. But to be truly close with somebody, I need to admire them in some way. Like I'm just at a point in my life where I don't want to hang out. I don't want to spend the majority of my time with people that I don't really respect and admire, who I feel are they don't have to be running they don't have to have the same calling I have, but they have to have the same general goal in life. If somebody's running a totally different direction and has different priorities, it's hard for me to want to invest my life by tying it with theirs. So anyway. We'll get to more Q&A at the end of the next episodes also. Right now, I want to wrap up by reminding you about our giveaway. If you go to gooddaygtn.com, you can get How to Be a Water Walker by Andrew Wommack. This is a much longer teaching he has, but this is like a bite-sized taste of the message, where it talks about stepping out of the boat. How do you live by faith and have miracles? How do you do things you've never done before? A lot of people are ready for change in their life, but they don't want to do anything new. And one of the keys to experiencing new and amazing things is to say, I'm going to do something today I've never done before. I'm going to step out of the boat. I'm going to walk by faith. I'm going to start a habit I've never had before. I'm going to, all that. So highly recommend that you check this out, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day, and yeah, take care.